Welcome to Covering 101. This is a basic class for fans and players alike, or anyone who's interested in the very basics of how it is defenses cover passing attacks coming from the offense. So if you are new to football or you would like to broaden maybe your basic understanding of the game, you've come to the right place and to this series that I'm kicking off right now. Today we're going to talk about what are the man coverages that exist in football. I'm giving you the basic ones here. Each team has their own little tweak on it, and that goes from high school to all the way to the NFL. Everyone has their little tweak, but I'm going to talk about where all man coverages come from, and they're these four basic coverages. They're cover 0, cover 1, bracket or combo coverage, and 2-man. If you are interested in going more in depth on the coverages I talk about here, let's say you're a player or a coach, or you just want to have further knowledge about it, I encourage you to join my All Eyes DB Camp members area. I will have a link to it in the description down below. We dig a little deeper into each one of these coverages that I talk about today and uncover a little bit more in case you want to go that far with it. Also, if you are interested in just the basics of all aspects of playing defensive back, I do have an ebook, 101 DB Tips. It's an awesome reference guide. It's gotten great reviews. Guys from high school all the way into the pros have taken a look at the book and they're enjoying it. So I will have a link to that down in the description as well. But let's jump into these four coverages: 2-man, cover 1, bracket coverage, as well as cover 0. Let's go. As we discuss these coverages, we are going to identify 5 factors. First is the rush. We're going to talk about the location of help, if there is any. We're going to talk about the leverage that the underneath players are going to play with. We're going to talk about where the potential help may be, as well as the amount of risk. The first coverage we're discussing is 2-man. In 2-man, we're looking at a 4-man rush. We cannot go more than 5 because we're going to have 7 guys in coverage, and 5 underneath men need to be in coverage on the 5 eligible wide receivers. 2-man features a 4-man pass rush. It also features 2 safeties over the top, one responsible for one half deep of the field, the other responsible for the other deep half of the field. Underneath in coverage, the 5 eligible wide receivers shown by X, H, F, and Z in this particular case are covered by 5 defenders. They are going to be here covering the 5 eligible wide receivers, and a linebacker would be responsible for this 5th and final running back, or if it was a wide receiver or the back was out of the backfield to make it empty, he would have to cover down on that, and they would be responsible for these 5 guys. So in your typical 2x2 set, this is what things would look like. Your corners covering down on the outside guys, your linebackers or additional defensive backs are covering down on the inside guys, and your linebacker is responsible for the remaining running back. In the event that the running back emptied out of the backfield and we're looking at an empty set, which means there are no backs in the backfield, the linebacker would have to walk out on that additional wide receiver and cover them as is shown right here. So now let's talk about leverage. As you can see, the defenders that are covering the 5 eligible wide receivers are aligned inside, and their job in coverage is to stay both inside and underneath. So as a wide receiver releases down the field, it's important for this corner to stay both inside and underneath. He doesn't want to be over the top because there's no help should a wide receiver run underneath. So it's important for the underneath defenders to remain inside, as shown here, and underneath. Why is he able to do that? Because help is being given by the safety to his side of the field. So as the receiver moves down the field, there's the opportunity for this safety to provide help on the deep routes, while the cornerback provides help on any routes inside and underneath. So essentially, there's a sandwiching of any of the wide receivers heading down the field by the defenders that are covering underneath, as well as the safety over the top. This is the ideal situation. Quarterback has to try and fit the ball in between these defenders, the one that's underneath and the safety that is over the top. 2-man is considered low risk because you have 5 guys coverage underneath and 2 men covering over the top, but it is not without its disadvantages. The disadvantage is that you're only getting a rush out of 4 guys, and that means that's less pressure on the quarterback, giving him more time to try and find a guy open. The next coverage we're going to talk about is cover one. Whereas two-man allowed for two safeties to be over the top, cover one only calls for one safety in the middle. It does allow us to put two linebackers in the box, but one of these safeties, instead of being on the hash, is going to come down to cover the slot wide receiver, and one safety, typically the free safety, is going to be in the middle of the field, providing some help for the guys covering underneath. The 5 eligible wide receivers are covered underneath by 5 defenders, and it looks something like this. The corners are on the outside guys, the linebacker and safety who's walked down is typically on the inside guys, and you may rush 4 or 5 depending on how you choose to cover this running back. As shown here, this running back is being covered by both of the inside linebackers. It's not a double team. It's going to work basically on which way that running back decides to release off into his route. So if the running back decided to release to this side of the formation, this linebacker to this side would have him, and if he decided to release to this side of the formation, this linebacker would take him. That's one way of doing it. Another way of handling this is devote one of these linebackers solely to covering the running back, no matter which way he goes, and the opposite linebacker would lurk right here in the middle and play what's known as a robber. So in this instance, this running back would be covered by this linebacker. He would have him all over the field, and this remaining middle linebacker would rob anything in this area coming across in the middle of the field, while the free safety is responsible for anything in the middle of the field, or typically out to both numbers. He's responsible for helping on deep coverage. The final way you could handle the coverage of the back is once again devoting one linebacker to covering this running back, and instead of using the remaining linebacker to lurk in the middle, you can add him to the pass rush to increase the pressure on the quarterback and get the ball out sooner. Let's talk about leverage in cover one. On the outsides, you're trying to play a bit of an outside technique because there is a potential for help in the low hole area in the middle and in the deep middle of the field. So you're trying to keep the routes away from the sidelines as much as you can because your help is here in the inside. The same works for the slot guys, depending on the distance away from the core, which is the 5 linemen that these slot guys line up on. If they're way inside, you're really trying to be on the outside shade of the slot guys. And if they happen to be way out here, you may want to play inside and force this guy to the outside. Cover one would be considered moderate risk because we're getting a decent pass rush with 4 or potentially 5 guys rushing the passer, and there is help in this coverage by way of the free safety in the middle of the field and potentially a linebacker lurking in the middle of the field. Now let's talk about bracket or combo coverage. Bracket or combo coverage could look like cover one pre-snap, where you have a safety somewhere in the deep or near the deep middle of the field. He may look like this is cover one, but there's a bit of a difference. Bracket or combo coverage means you're going to double team a key player on the offense, somebody that you think is going to be a serious problem. In this particular case, I've chosen Y here. He's depicted with this blue, and there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can have the guy that's playing down on him take everything that's vertical or going to the outside, while the free safety, who initially is lined up maybe somewhere here in the middle, can walk down and take anything that's inside or to the deep post. And these two guys would form a combo coverage on him. So to give you a visual on that, if this Y receiver were to go and run an out route, this strong safety would take him, and then this free safety has the ability now to go roam and be free here in the middle of the field, potentially helping the other guys that are in man coverage. If the Y receiver decided to go inside anywhere into this area or to the post, this free safety could pick him up, and the strong safety would just kind of hang here on the outside, and now they've got this player bracketed, they've got him covered inside and outside, and they take a dangerous receiver out of the game plan by devoting 2 men to him. So now what happens to the remaining 4 eligible wide receivers? Well, they are covered by 4 defenders, similar to what you have in cover one. Corners on the outside guys, and then we have a running back or potentially a 5th wide receiver to be paying attention to. So we have 2 linebackers here. It could be the same deal where they go inside out. If he goes this way, this guy takes him. If he ends up going to this side of the formation, this guy could take him, or they can have a situation where one guy is devoted to him, let's say this will backer, and then the Mike linebacker hangs down here in the middle, similar to cover one, or this linebacker has him everywhere he goes, and this linebacker adds to the rush to bring pressure. And now keep in mind, you could combo coverage any guy on the offensive side of the ball. I showed you how we're doing it on Y. We could do that on Z. And a way that we could do that is this corner could play inside and underneath, similar to two-man. And this free safety can be over the top to provide the sandwich that I spoke about in two-man on this particular receiver if the defense determines that he is really dangerous and they don't want guys matched up on him one-on-one. The New England Patriots were famous for doing this. What they would do is take their best corner and put him on the second best wide receiver, and they would take their second best corner and help him by having him double team a team's best wide receiver. So a team's best wide receiver has two men devoted to him, and then the best corner on the team is basically going to be providing a mismatch for the defense as he's taking the team's second best wide receiver. And in most cases, that works out well because you take the best guy out with two guys, and then your best guy is going against their second best guy. In terms of risk, bracket combo coverage would be considered moderate risk. You still have the potential for help from a free safety in the middle, depending on what the guy that they are supposed to be bracketing does. The rest of these guys are in coverage, and there is the potential for a 4 or 5 man rush depending on how teams want to handle the remaining running back or that fifth wide receiver. So there is some risk in this, maybe a little bit more than cover one. Certainly, there's more risk than two-man, but not as much risk as cover zero, which we're going to discuss right now. And now let's talk about cover zero. How did cover zero get its name? Because there's nobody back in this area. Cover one has one guy in the middle. Two-man has two guys deep. Cover zero has 0 guys deep. So this is considered a risky coverage. So instead of this strong safety covering this Y slot receiver right here, there's a situation where he could be coming off of the edge and he's applying pressure to the quarterback. The free safety, who used to be lurking somewhere in the middle or on the hash, is now down having to cover this slot receiver because the strong safety is no longer covering him. On the outside, the corners are matched up on the wide receivers that are on the outside, and we've got a linebacker or an additional defensive back covering the slot to this side. The remaining back is covered by either a linebacker or a safety that's coming down, or if he's a fifth wide receiver out here, linebacker would have to walk out on him, and there's a potential for a safety to cover him. But what we're getting in this particular case is an additional and added pass rush. What I'm showing you is just a generic setup. Teams have different ways of deciding who's going to cover who and who's going to be in the pass rush. At the end of the day, the entire idea of cover zero is to provide an intense pass rush on the quarterback, sending more guys at him that the team really has able to block. In this particular case, there are 5 guys trying to block, and the defense is bringing 6 guys in this particular case. Let's say the offense tried to provide additional protection for the quarterback by having this running back block. Instead of covering the running back who's not going out for a route, this linebacker would just add to the rush, and now it's 7 guys against 6 guys blocking. The idea is to provide more guys pass rushing the quarterback than the offense has to block, meaning the quarterback has to get the ball out pretty fast. So while it's risky because there's no help in the middle or deep parts of the field for these guys that are covering underneath, the help comes in the form that because this quarterback is under pressure and there's the chance of a free runner coming in to hit him, he has to get rid of the ball faster, and these guys are not in coverage as long as they would be in some of the other coverages. So in summary, man coverage comes in many shapes and sizes and forms, but the majority of your man coverages are born out of the 4 that we have covered here. 2-man, cover 1, bracket or combo coverage, or cover 0. And that's it. So that's your man coverages in a nutshell. As I said in the beginning, every team has their little tweak to the man coverages, but they're all born out of these 4 basic coverages. And as you can see, they range from extremely risky, like cover 0, to fairly safe in 2-man. but they're man coverages nonetheless. Also, as I said before, if you guys want to dig in deeper into each one of these coverages with a little bit more of the intricacies, where guys line up and the different variations of it, feel free to join my All Eyes DB Camp members area. I have a link to it in the description down below. And then of course there's my ebook, which is the ultimate reference guide for defensive backs, 101 DB tips. Also, we'll have a link to that down in the description below. I am looking forward to doing more of these basic pass coverage series with you guys. We'll talk about the position players to the different formations on defense, as well as everything else having to do with pass coverage, and try to give you guys a basic understanding of what happens back there in the secondary, so you can watch football game and have more knowledge as you watch the game and understand a little bit more of what's going on there in front of you. All right, thank you guys for joining me. If you liked the video, please like the video, share the video, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, All Eyes DB Camp, consistency breeds results.